I'm remembering the days before I went away, way back in the hills of old Vermont. And the orchard on the hill, I think I see it still, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. There used to be a barn near the old fishing pond, way back in the hills of old Vermont. So many fields of hay now gone with yesterday, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Well, everything has changed, nothing stays the same, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Like that old brown panther's roar, you won't hear that no more, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. But when the rains came down and flooded many towns, way back in the hills of old Vermont, all the neighbors lent a hand for the loving of the land, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Oh, tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Hi, this is Rik Palieri right here in the hills of old Vermont, saying welcome to another Songs and Stories for Hard-Hitting Times. And well, folks, as you probably can guess, that we're back to having some hard-hitting times. Instead of going like forward, or now we're going backwards again, because not enough people listened. That's right, not enough people listened and got the vaccine, which is really a shame, because all you folks who love music, love to go out to all these live events, now we're all looking at we musicians who worked really hard for this moment that we could have an opening and we can go play live. Our gigs are getting canceled yet again. That's right. And who knows what it's going to be like. And if I sound frustrated, that's okay, because I am. I think there's so many people, I'm seeing frustration from so many musicians who worked really hard to get new bookings because they didn't have any bookings, and now they're getting those dreaded emails and telephone calls saying, nope, we're worried. Why not? Why not? I'll tell you, right here in our little town of Heinsberg, our grocery store is closed down because eight people who worked there, cashiers and stockers and stuff, they got COVID and they had to close down the shopping, the whole thing, until they straighten things out. So that's where we're at, folks. We're like I said, we're trying to go forward, and yet we're going backwards, and it's not good. And the thing is that we worry for each other. That's it. We worry for everybody. Because if you're carrying this thing, and even if you don't have big symptoms from it, you can infect somebody else. Maybe somebody's mother or grandmother, or maybe a little child. Because that's what you're going to be finding a lot now, is a lot of kids are now in the hospital. And so I think that it's time to, to wake up and smell the coffee. That's what, if I was over on the Kokomo Kid, he's good about that, about telling people things to do and how to do them, and in a fun way. And I've been helping Kokomo out along with all the folks from the cafe, the Kokomo Kid Cafe, Coffee with Kokomo. And while Kokomo's been out there doing some gigs, we've been filling in. And one of the songs that I hadn't sung in many, many years, I started singing on those little fill-in shows. Went something like this. Woke up this morning, sun was slowly dawning. Couldn't get my feet out of bed. So I stumbled to the kitchen. To improve my sad condition, sweet coffee beans were roasting in my head. My tongue was salivating while that pot was percolating, but that black liquid gold just laid ahead. When I smelt that sweet aroma, I returned from my coma, and these are the very words I said. Yes, indeed. Give me chocolate, raspberry, Tanzanian peat berry. You know that Ethiopian blows my mind. For I have the intuition to change my disposition. You know I love coffee all the time. Give me blue peas from Jamaica, Guatemala, mocha java, cafe au lait's okay every time. Dark roast or French roast from the northeast or south coast. You know I got coffee on my mind. Yeah. You tell him, Rick. What's going on now? Nighttime was falling. My thoughts kept on calling for one more old cup to get me through. This day was a mess, filled with pain and distress, and I need another hit of that hot brew. So I jumped into my beat-up car, head out to that coffee bar. Now my head is feeling almost new. With hot coffee in my hand, I'm here listening to the band. Now I'm gonna share this little tip with you. Give me chocolate, raspberry, Tanzanian peat berry. You know that Ethiopian blows my mind. For I have the intuition to change my disposition. You know I love coffee all the time. Give me blue peas from Jamaica, Guatemala, mocha java, cafe au lait's okay every time. Dark roast or French roast from the northeast or south coast. You know I got coffee on my mind. Well, you know I got coffee on my mind. Coffee on my mind. So that's for all of the folks here from the Kokomo's Cafe. I see we have Rhonda Scott Merrick is here. All right. And Linda's here. Linda Potberg caught it this time in the evening. All right. It's so hard to get almost a taste of some normalcy to have it yanked back, and even worse, get danger with the little kids. That's true. It's really sad. And but we're not going to, we're not going to spend the whole time talking about that, because we already said it. We already said it, and you know what to do. Everybody here knows that the best way that we can get ourselves out of this mess is, if you are not vaccinated, to help everybody else out and do your part. It's sort of like, planting a victory garden back in World War II. Everybody did their part. Everybody did something to try to contribute for the general, health of a nation. And that's what we're talking about, folks. We're talking about getting people well and stopping people from getting sick. Now, right now, if this world wasn't so screwed up, I would be out on the road, and where would I be? I think what I would do is I would probably be maybe out in Britt, Iowa, for the National Hobo Convention. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. One of the kings of the hobos, his name was Roadhog. He heard my song about frog, and he called me up and he said, "Rick, I like that song about frog. When are you going to write a song about me?" I said, "Well, tell me about yourself, Roadhog." He said, "Well, I spent about 40 years riding the rails, but now I'm getting old. I can't hop the trains like I used to, so I'm pulling the pin." I said, "Pulling the pin? What does that mean?" He goes, "Pulling the pin? Oh, that's a hobo term, It's like you disconnect the train cars by pulling that little pin, and the hobo disconnects from the road life by pulling the pin." So I said, "Okay, Roadhog, I'll write this little story here. Pulling the pin, hitting the road, leaving behind stories untold. My life's getting out, so I'm giving in. Adios, dirty face, I'm pulling the pin. My rambling days are over, it's mighty plain to see. For there's no place in this old world for an old hobo like me. I'm packing my last bindle down on the heel of Brahma. Gila monster route, going home to California. Blow the candles out, yeah. Pulling the pin, hitting the road, leaving behind stories untold. My life's giving out, so I'm giving in. Adios, dirty face, I'm pulling the pin. Now when I was a young boy, living by the tracks, I'd hop a rolling freight train, man, I never did look back. I saw the big rock candy mountain, looking out my boxcar door. Now I'm just an old man, can't hop trains no more. Pulling the pin, quitting the road, leaving behind stories untold. My life's giving out, so I'm giving in. Adios, dirty face, I'm pulling the pin. Now I'm living by a freight yard, trains whistle in my ears. I'm looking down those same tracks I rode for 40 years. I smile at the brakeman, wave to the engineer, curse that mean old railroad bull, laughing through my beer. Pulling the pin, quitting the road, leaving behind stories untold. My life's giving out, so I'm giving in. Adios, dirty face, I'm pulling the pin. Pulling the pin. So, if you were at the convention, at the Hobo Convention in Britt, which is like one of the oldest conventions in the country, it's over I think, I can't remember if it's like 125 years now it's been going on. It's a little town out in Britt, Iowa. Well, all the old hobos would be there, and they'd be sitting around in a big circle around a campfire. And I thought I would kind of give you a little idea of what my first impressions were when I got to Britt. And this is from my book, The Road is My Mistress. And it goes like this. The National Hobo Convention in Britt, Iowa. For years now, Utah Phillips has been telling me about the National Hobo Convention in Britt, Iowa. This weekend, I made my way through the open fields of grain to check it out. What I found was quite amazing. Since 1900, the small town of Britt has opened its arms to hobos, honoring them with parades, a hobo museum, a hobo cafe, a hobo jungle complete with showers and cooking facilities, and even a hobo graveyard for when the hobos catch that last train ride. When I arrived on Saturday, this tiny town was packed over 1,000 tourists. There was a carnival atmosphere about it, with a flea market, rides, and games blocking the main street. I parked my rig near the hobo jungle and meandered down Main Street, and there in front of the Hobo Museum sat my old pal, Danville Dan, the singing hobo, playing his old resonator guitar. Danville asked me to play a few tunes as he introduced me all around. It was nice to see such a friendly bunch of folks exchanging stories and songs on the street, and as we jammed, a crowd of onlookers filled up Dan's guitar case with dollar bills. He said, "Rick, this is great. You do the work," and they put money in my case. After a few more tunes, I headed out to see the parade. There was a long line of chairs around the parade route, and I got there just in time to hear the first fire truck send out a signal welcoming everyone to the 98th Hobo Convention. The parade followed with a few marching bands and politicians and antique cars, ending with a hobo float crammed with hobos of all ages. After the parade, there was a lineup for free mulligan stew made by the Boy Scouts. This was a tasty soup filled with meat, rice, lots of fresh veggies. The soup line circled around the town green and the park gazebo where all day the daytime activities were held. After we chowed down, it was time for the crowning of the king and queen of hobos. Since the beginning of this convention, the event has been one of the highlights. Every year, a new king and queen are selected by a show of applause by hobos and the audience. It was a moving event when the reigning King Frog and Queen Minneapolis Jewel said their farewell speeches and announced the nominees for this year's election. 4 men, 4 women were announced. They stepped up to the microphones. Each delivered a speech about their philosophy and what they could do if they were elected. The audience applauded. Then a hush fell on the crowd as the votes were tabulated. The MC called out the winners, and pandemonium broke out as this year's royalty greeted their kingdom. The new king, New York Slim, a huge 6'7" African-American, and Cinders, a small tubbish woman from a railroad family, were given the crown, a straw hat with a cut-up coffee can on the top, red and blue robes, and royal walking sticks. The news media gathered round the new royal couple, like sharks around a bloody fish bait, as the hobo musicians entertained the crowd. I was honored by the hobos by being allowed to help out with the festivities and pitched in with some of the singing hobos, Liberty Justice, Bojangles, Windy City Tom, Fishbones, Frisco Jack, Wisconsin Dell, and Danville Dan, just to name a few. Later that night, there was a big feed, and the concert was downtown in the Hobo Jungle. The jungle is a field on the outskirts of the town with a large open-air kitchen, and an open boxcar to sleep in, which is available year-round for the traveling beaux. This was the big convention. The fields were covered with tents and sleeping bags, and the town paid for the free meal, and the hobos provided all the entertainment. Today there seems to be two groups of traveling communities, an older group and a group of young kind of punk thrashers who call themselves Flintstones. These young riders dressed in black shirts and combat fatigues, big black biker boots and skinheads are into body tattoos and seem to avoid uh, they seem to avoid water. They used freight trains as a way of travel, while the old hobos carried on the tradition of working odd jobs, storytelling, and playing music and traveling. These two groups are at odds as the older hobos are a friendly group who are carrying on old hobos' ways, while the Flintstones are a more violent nature, almost a Lord of the Flies riding freight trains. Now, since I wrote that, I've learned a lot more about that. And it's not quite the way that it looked to me that first time. And a lot of the young kids are really great kids. They're out there doing their own thing. And just like any kind of generation, one generation doesn't quite understand the next, as you will see. The evening's concert started off with the older hobos singing old songs and reciting hobo poetry. It was family entertainment. Later, after all the townspeople went home, the new kids took the stage. At first, they sang a few songs to a borrowed guitar. Then they sang old folk songs unaccompanied. Then they asked everyone to sit in a circle with hands joined and then together created a sound wave. Everyone added some sort of note, a wail, a yell, a bellow, or a scream, and produced a sort of new age Harry Partch kind of music. Then they picked up bits of pieces of scrap wood and began beating them into tribal rhythms on their pails, their plastic pails. One of the group sprang up with two lit sticks and did a fire dance, walking into the campfire barefooted, swishing the flames around his body. Then he held up his head and spit a ball of fire into the air. The group then found the kitchen pots and plastic tubs and pails and continued drumming. Two men jumped up and started dancing around the campfire, peeled off their clothes. Soon a young woman joined them, stripping off her dress, and they all were dancing to the throbbing rhythm of the drums. The drumming continued as the police cars pulled into the jungle. The young naked woman disappeared into the darkness as the police surrounded the campfire. The police did not seem to know just what to do because it was about 2 a.m. and there were 50 or more kids now beating on their drums. The old-timers stood shocked as they watched this new generation perform their tribal rituals around the old jungle campfire. I sat there thinking, next time, I got to bring my didgeridoo. Yes, it was one of those moments where you saw one generation and another generation clashing for the first time. But, since that time, they've been able to work things out. And now a lot of those young kids are the ones who are actually running the festival. They're making the food, and they've learned a lot about their responsibility, about being a good host. So, even though that first time was a little bit of a shock, it really turned out that in today's world, it's things have kind of worked themselves out. Now, I don't know if you can see this. Now, Kokomo Kid is much better at this than I am. But this is that first year that I went there, they had these buckles. And see if I can bring it close here. Right there. So this is one of the buckles from the Britt Hobo Convention that they made these special buckles up for everyone who wanted one back then. They're hard to get now. And I brought along now, some of the folks from the cafe saw this, but this is kind of interesting. This is what they call a hobo knife, because you need something that you can eat with. And they found that they could take a knife and a fork, and you have your fork there. You can see that. There's your fork. And then you push this down like that, and it comes apart. And you got to be careful, but there's your knife. So you got your knife and your fork, and you can sit down and eat yourself a nice meal. And then when you get done, you carefully put the knife back in like this. Take the fork here and you line it up like this, press it down, snaps back together. So that's the old hobo knife. Now, one of the things that you find if you went to the hobo convention is that a lot of people had patches on their jacket, and especially patches like this one here. So this is the kind of thing that a lot of people, wore, with, they'd have something written on there. This one was made for me, and you can see that it has all this musical stuff there with my name, Ricky, over here. The Song of the Elk, because that was my nickname back years ago when I lived in Poland. And so you would see a lot of people using that kind of thing. And you'd see people that would carry these sticks, these hobo sticks, as you can see. So this is a kind of a stick that a lot of the old hobos carry them. And they use them in all different types of traditions. If you get knighted for being, sort of a friend of the hobos, like I got knighted a few times, and it was actually very interesting. All the kings and the queens, they make a big circle and they take this thing and they take and they tap you on the shoulder with it and they give you your road name, and so they gave me. There was the what was it now? I can't remember. Oh, it was the great Grand Duke of New England Hobos. So they gave me that kind of nickname there. And you can see that they make these and they either give them away as gifts or they also sometimes sell them too. And another thing, I'm going to see if I can. Another thing to show you and see if I can remember this song. I've tried to play this a couple times. I don't sing it often enough. But this, I'm going to bring it in close, closer, 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 closer. Okay. So this is a hobo nickel. So back in the old days, that the hobos, they would be able to take a nickel and they recarve the face on it. You see that? They put an old hobo on it. Now sometimes they change it and they put a train car on the other side or other things. I'm getting that right there so you could see the face there. So that's a hobo nickel. Now this one was a gift to me by one of the old hobo carvers. And I wrote a song about it. Let's see if I can remember it now. It was back from another century, back from another time, when the steam train highballed down the line. Well, no one ever knew his name, though he often passed by. They just called him that hobo nickel guy. His nickels told a story of a life out on the rails. Wait, his nickel told a story of a life out on the rails. See, I can never sing this song for some reason. I don't know what it is. I'll try it again. His nickel told a story of a life out on the rails, though his carvings never brought him fame. They tell of love and loneliness and 1,000 other tales of a man in love with a train. He wore an old brown derby, gray whiskers down his chin, traded his nickels for lodging, food, and gin. He drank his coffee strong in a tub made out of tin, telling poems and stories of the places he had been. His nickels told a story of a life out on the rails, though his carvings never brought him fame. They tell of love and loneliness and 1,000 other tales of a man in love with a train. He lived down near the tracks, he lived out of his sight, carving nickels, trying to make a dime. When the next train rolled by, he'd catch out on the fly, rolling like thunder, that hobo nickel guy. His nickels told a story of a life out on the rails, though his carvings never brought him fame. They tell of love and loneliness and 1,000 other tales of a man in love with a train. His nickels told the story of a life out on the rails, though his carvings never brought him fame. They tell of love and loneliness and 1,000 other tales of a man in love with a train. Oh yeah. See, sometimes you gotta keep on going, and then the words start coming to you. All right. So we see that we have some Rhonda Scott Merrick. She's got a cold cup of coffee. She's clunking along. And Al is down in Florida, and a mighty fine book. All right, and stories. Barney Smith, great story, Rick. Al Poindexter. Next time, how about rain sticks? Okay, not a knife. Rhonda Scott Merrick. All right, what's the cafe without a knife? Oh, you gotta watch, the Kokomo Kid every day at 10 o'clock in the morning. You have to experience it. All right, great song, Rick. Well, it's a great song if you can remember it, But I did. I kind of got through it, But tell you the truth, folks, is I had hurt my arm a while ago, and it's still fighting with me, and so I have to really concentrate right now. So let's do a song. I can remember. One time I was at one of the hobo conventions, because I got invited to a lot of them. And, the story that I read you, that was the very first time that I went to a hobo convention. And many of the people that I talked about are all gone now. They've all passed on. In the hobo lingo, they say that they caught the westbound. And a lot of them are buried over in the graveyard over in Britt. And so this weekend, if you're anywhere near Britt, Iowa, you can go there, because it's going to be happening. They're gathering as we speak, and that's one of the reasons I decided to share these stories with you, and experience it for yourself. Go sit around the campfire and listen to the old songs. And I can remember one time I was at a different gathering. It was late at night, and all the hobos were getting ready to hit the sack, and it was pretty late at night. And we sat and was sitting around there, and I had one more song to sing that night. So we sang it together. It was Woody Guthrie's favorite songs. It was written by Goebel Reeves. Now I know that you know it, so you can sing it with me. Right, Al? You gonna sing it? Go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the towns drift slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's the hobo's lullaby. I know your clothes are torn and tattered, and your hair is turning gray. Lift your head and smile on trouble. You'll find peace and rest someday. Let's try it together. Ready? Go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the towns drift slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's the hobo's lullaby. Don't you worry about tomorrow. Let tomorrow come and go. Tonight you're in a nice warm boxcar, safe from all that wind and snow. Let's try it together now. Go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the towns drift slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's the hobo's lullaby. I know the policemen that cause you trouble. They cause trouble everywhere. When you die and go to heaven, there'll be no policeman there. Let's try it one more time. Go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the towns drift slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's the hobo's lullaby. Well, until next week, this is Rik Palieri from the hills of old Vermont, wishing you a very safe week. Keep yourself safe. Keep your friends safe. We'll see you next week one more time right here at the Songs and Stories for Hard-Hitting Times. We'll sing it one more time together. Ready? Go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the towns drift slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's the hobo's lullaby. See you next time. Bye-bye.